More often than not, when an intended victim offers significant resistance, criminals flee. Hi everyone, this is John with today's active self-protection lesson out of Chicago, Illinois in the United States. Here we're going to see a couple of carjackers who run into an intended victim who ends up having more teeth than they wanted. So these guys see a cool car sitting there on the roadside, decide they're going to carjack it, and the guy in the gray sweater there actually has a firearm and points it at the occupant while his buddy goes around to the other side. What they don't know though is the guy's an off-duty Chicago cop, and he gets his firearm off, puts one shot on him, has to clear a malfunction, a second a malfunction, a third a malfunction, and now he's going to take off kind of getting out of the way, and we're going to change back again to these guys are going to get out. He's going to get a couple shots off at the cop. The news story says that nobody was injured in this one, and that authorities are still looking for the carjackers, and that's where this one ends. Boy, that one was pretty crazy. If you appreciate the lessons you get here every day from Active Self-Protection, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a lesson. There's an awful lot to think about in this one, including the right time to use deadly force. Also on having the proper grip on the firearm so we don't induce malfunctions, and on movement and cover and concealment when we're in a deadly force encounter. First thing we want to think about here is transitional spaces and ambushes. This sidewalk is absolutely a transitional space, and whenever you are in your car and it is not moving, it becomes a transitional space, particularly here walking down the sidewalk where people would expect these guys to be, that it's normal for them to walk down the sidewalk, and so they're able to camouflage their intentions, which is why in these kind of attacks, as a defender, you're always at an initiative deficit. They get to make the first move. They get to decide when the action starts, and you are going to respond to that. One of the best ways to be prepared though is to lock your doors. If you are sitting in a car, that car needs to have the doors locked, and if you're sitting in a car, that car should be running as well. One of the ways that I see people victimized all the time is they leave their car doors open, the car is off, they're not paying attention to what's outside the car, and therefore they are at a huge initiative deficit because they don't have any ability to know what's going on. If this officer had seen these guys walking by, he would have at least maybe been paying attention and make sure they were doing okay and not meaning him harm, and therefore been able to respond quicker. Now, when they're going to go around to the other side here, we're going to see our officer get out of the car very, very quickly, and you're going to notice here he pulls a gun out of his pocket and has to dump a holster. You can see it there at the bottom, and you notice that he's got his hand over the top of the gun like that. So number one, he's got to pull the gun out of his holster and then strip the holster off. If you're using a pocket holster, friends, or a belt-mounted holster, the gun needs to come out of the holster without a second hand needing to get the gun off. And number two, you got to know how to get a hold of that gun, because you're going to see him get that gun up here and take a shot. And now we want to think about that shot first of all. Now we're going to say, okay, fine, that he was, legally justified to do that. He's in the midst of a carjacking. There is a gun present. Both these guys can be seen to act as one. And so, okay, he's justified to use deadly force to stop the deadly threat against him. Might even go even farther to say, as a police officer, he might feel like he has the duty in this instance to stop the crime in progress because he's protecting the community. I don't think that a CCW has that, but we'll say that the officer does. But maybe let's just think as CCW holders here for a minute about the fact that it might well have been smarter to just keep running and not put himself at danger. Now, clearly, if he has family in that car, all bets are off. You're not going to run off and leave your family at bay. But if it's just a vehicle, friends, you're ending up having a gunfight here for the deductible on your insurance, which isn't necessarily a wise thing, though the totality of the circumstances dictates. Now, notice here that because he had the weird grip on the gun, he has to clear a malfunction. And yes, clearing malfunctions is a critical skill with a firearm. I do see firearms malfunction occasionally, but usually when we do, it's because of an improper grip. It's because of what this guy had with his thumb over it or whatever. So training to hold the firearm appropriately is even more critical a skill, but knowing how to quickly clear a malfunction, and if you notice, he's clearing another one and not having to tap the bottom of his magazine, so he gets another shot off there, has to clear another one, but he's just running the slide. Now, do you notice here that he is getting a decent firing position as well, but then he is running off here, and when it's time to run, he runs. When it's time to shoot, he shoots. Now, finally, as our bad guy gets out of the car, you see him just pop a shot off at random, and I see that all the time as well. They don't care about harming innocents, and they don't really care about marksmanship. So that's why I say, as a self-defender, you really want to focus on putting the shots where they belong, because you want to end that threat so they're not winging shots off all over everywhere. All in all, a few really significant things to think about here. Let's make sure we're aware. Let's make sure that we are not unaware in transitional spaces, that we lock our car doors, that we know the right time to defend ourselves, how to hold our firearm appropriately, how to effectively clear a malfunction if we need to, move and shoot adequately, and cover our ASP.